So as I mentioned, today we are going to be talking about how to have baked goods in the house without binging on them. So who here, if you can type in the chat or you can feel free to unmute, but have you ever had any difficulty with baked goods in the house? Maybe it's something else in particular, maybe it's pizza, but this will all apply to everything when we have trouble keeping these foods in the house. So this week I baked some brownies, and I used to be terrified of baking things like brownies and cookies, cakes, because I was so scared if I was going to binge on them. Before, I used to just get so much anxiety that I wouldn't even want to bake in the first place because I knew I would just start eating one and then I'd end up eating half the pan. I could never have amounts that felt good to me at the time. Now I'm able to have just one or two at a time and move on really effortlessly. Brownies are good. I still enjoy them very much. I think they're delicious, but I don't have that same strong desire for them. So I'm going to teach you how to get rid of that desire today. So I want you to be able to have any food in the house, whether it's something that you bake or something else, and have them without binging on them, because you deserve to have these things, right? They're delicious. We deserve to have pleasure, especially when we eat them in amounts that feel good to us, right? When we're eating half the pan of brownies, doesn't feel so great. But if we could have just one, it would feel a lot more doable. So if you enjoy baking, let me know as well. I somewhat enjoy baking. I definitely enjoy it more now, but I'm kind of lazy. So I'd rather just buy a fancy brownie out somewhere. But this week I was motivated to actually make my brownies. So what can make having these baked goods in the house hard? What can make this difficult? First, you're having a larger portion of sweets in the house than you might normally have. So if you're someone who tries to be really good and keeps all the sweets out of your house, all of a sudden when you have a tray of 12 brownies or 20 cookies, it can feel a little overwhelming. So how I teach people how to eat in moderation is very similar and based on the principles of exposure therapy, where we need to interact with these foods in a way that feels safe to us in order to get rid of that anxiety around them, in order to learn how to eat them how we want to. So sometimes it can feel like when we bring all this baked goods into our house at once, it might feel like someone who has a severe fear of flying just throwing themselves on the airplane, or someone with a fear of spiders going into a room of spiders. So if you're noticing a lot of that anxiety, that is okay. It makes sense because if in the past you frequently binged on food, your brain is going to have a memory of how you've eaten on this food in the past. Now, that is just a memory. It is not a guarantee that you're going to eat baked goods in the same way, but just be aware that if this anxiety comes up, it's okay. That's normal. So if this is you and you also live alone or with just one other person, having a whole pan of brownies might just be a lot of brownies for you. You might not need that many, or maybe, we're pretty far from Christmas now, but when Christmas comes around, if you were to bake 20 cookies, that might just be too much. So I'd be curious too, if you want to put in the chat, do you live alone? Do you have a partner? Do you live with kids? And noticing how that may or may not impact your amount of food that you have. So what else is hard is, let's say we bake something like brownies or a cake. There's not really predetermined portions to it. So you might be thinking, well, I don't know how much to have. I don't know how much I want. I don't know how much to give myself. I don't know what I'm allowed to have. I don't know what's going to feel good. And that can be a little harder versus when the portions are decided for you. Now, what we'll learn is you get to always decide the portions. Even when things are pre-portioned out and you get brownies in a little individual package that you have to unwrap each one, you are still deciding in that moment what your portion is. You could still decide, I want 5 pre-packaged brownies and unwrap each one, or you could decide, I just want one. So you get to decide for yourself when you have these baked goods in your house, what your perfect portion is. That might be a smaller piece of brownie or to break the cookie in half. You get to decide what's going to feel best to you. Now, these foods are usually sitting out on the counter in plain sight, right? Like, I have the brownies out on the counter just with a little saran wrap right now because I've trained my brain to not think about them so much. But the research shows that When we have things in clear containers and we can see it, we're more likely to eat it. So you can use this to your advantage if you're making a salad for yourself instead of having it tucked away in a back drawer or in a container that's dark. If you have it in a nice clear container in the center of your fridge, you're more likely to eat that salad. Now, if you have the brownies out on the counter and you walk past that counter many times a day, your brain is going to be triggered more to think about those. Now, just because you're thinking about that food more does not mean you have to eat it. You can just think about it and have it be no big deal. We have items every day that we pass by that we just don't really think about it. Those baked goods could be something like that. But I want to make this process as easy as possible for you. So what I recommend doing, especially in the beginning when you're retraining your brain how to eat these foods, is putting it in a container a little bit more out of sight. So if you have a container that is not transparent, that is more dark, that you can't really see into, put it in one of those containers out of the pan so you can pack it up and then put it in the cabinet, right? Who says you can't put them in the cabinet? Just because it's not that we're trying to hide them for you, but we're just trying to give it so you have to think a little bit more intentionally, do I actually want this or not, versus just seeing them out on the counter. So the final thing that I see, which makes having baked goods hard as a binge eater, is people will get into this energy of like, I made these, but I'm not really allowed to have any of them, or I shouldn't really have any of them. Like I was just baking them, but not for me. These are bad for me. I'm not supposed to have them. So you're not even allowing yourself to eat them. What tends to happen here is what I call the brownie line cut, where you take a little cut of the brownie and you take a little more and a little more and a little more until you've done that 10 times and then you've eaten a whole row of brownies. Tell me that I'm not alone in this and that someone else has done this in their journey with food. We tell ourselves, okay, maybe let's just have a little. Okay, a little won't hurt, but we're still not fully giving ourselves permission to have it. There's still this underlying thought of I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be having it, which makes us want it more. And then the more we want it, the more we're trying to sneakily eat it, have it as fast as possible so we don't have to deal with the guilt of it. So what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do when we have baked goods in the house, or we want to be someone who can make brownies, make cookies, make a birthday cake, have birthday cake given to us, and just have it be no big deal? The first thing I want you to do is to fully give yourself permission to have it. Now, I know this step is always the scariest for people because, again, your brain has memories of how you've eaten this food in the past. So it's reminding you of these memories. Oh, remember the last time you baked brownies and you ate them all? Oh, remember the last time someone gave you cookies and you had to throw them away because you felt so out of control? But looking at those memories and saying, this is past me. I'm becoming someone different. I'm becoming a natural eater who can eat in line with their body without fear of binging on it because I am retraining my brain. So you want to look at it as an opportunity to do something different. Even if it's a challenge, it can be a good challenge because we need to be challenged in order to do something different. Okay, so when you give yourself permission to have it, I want you to remind yourself that it's okay to eat a brownie or a cookie, or I'm just saying brownies because I have brownies, but whatever this applies to whatever baked goods you want to have in your house. And it's okay to enjoy and eat a brownie. You're allowed to have these things, and you're not doing anything wrong or bad for having this food. If you have ever dieted before, you've probably been told it's bad for me to eat sugar. It's bad for me to eat brownies. I should not be having this. But when we're telling ourselves and then we have it, then we feel like a bad person. So reminding yourself that, I'm not here saying sugar is great for you and it's benefiting your health, but it does benefit us in a way of it's pleasurable. It tastes good. And it's okay to have things just for pleasure. We can be healthy individuals. We can be individuals who maintain weight, who lose weight, and still have treats in their life. I've done it. I've seen it happen. You don't have to be good all the time in order to get the results you want. And what actually happens is when we try to be good all the time, that's when we say screw it and eat the whole pan of brownies anyways, so we're actually not really sticking to being good. So when you're deciding to have this baked good, I want you to decide how much you're going to have of it before you start eating. So I recommend portioning up your goods in some way. So whether that's slicing the brownie tray into the squares and not just doing the brownie line cut of a little more, a little more, a little more, deciding your portion that you want. This is something that does take a little time to develop and a little trust in yourself, but I promise you, you have so much wisdom inside of you. You most definitely can make your decisions in the way you want to be making them. So what this looks like is, let's say you have cake in the house. It was your birthday recently and you have some extra cake. What you're going to do is you're not going to say, well, let me just take a fork and let me just have a quick bite. I want you to decide, if I want some, let me cut myself a slice. Cut yourself a slice, and then I want you to put it on a plate. So decide your portion, put it on a plate or a napkin, because we want to bring this intentionality behind it. What happens when we're mindless is we have a hard time connecting in with our satisfaction. We don't actually notice how things are tasting when we're standing up over the cake, shoveling it in our mouth, right? Like that's when we really don't enjoy it. That's when it's really not fun. When we enjoy it is when we sit down and we get to taste it and we notice the flavors and the textures and the temperature of it. That's what makes it an enjoyable experience. So once you have it on your plate, your napkin, sit down with it. Do not stand up and eat this because again, just sitting allows your brain to calm down, right? We're sitting, we're resting. We're not, okay, go, go, go. I'm doing something next. Let's just have a quick brownie real quick. No, we are sitting, we are being intentional about it. Now, know that you can go back for more. Again, this is not a strategy to try to say no to yourself and only one brownie. This is a strategy to help you become more mindful and make choices that feel good to you. I had 2 brownies the first day I baked them because they were delicious, and I felt really good about that. You don't have to just have one, but before I went back for the second, I checked in with myself. I took a few deep breaths. I asked myself, do I really want this, or would I be okay having it later? And I thought, I'm feeling good right now. I'm okay having a little second one. So I had a little second one, but I repeated the same process. I didn't say, okay, fine, I'll have a little more and just have a little slice and a little slice and a little slice. No, I said, okay, I'm gonna have a second brownie. Took it, put it on my plate, sat down with it, enjoyed the heck out of it. And then I moved on without punishment, without guilt, without shame, knowing that they're just brownies. It's gonna be okay. Okay, and I already mentioned the tip about putting it away in the container, putting it off of the counter just for now. This isn't something you have to do forever, but just to kind of help you get out of the routine of seeing it every time you walk into the kitchen. You have to actually decide if you want it or not. And making sure you stay out of all or nothing. So if you are used to being all or nothing thinking, let me know in the chat if this is you, where you say, I either have all the brownies or none of the brownies. If this is you, I want you to remind yourself that you have not ruined anything. That just because you had a brownie does not mean you are off track. That nothing is going wrong. Because when we start to go into the screw it mode of who cares, I've already started it, that's when the real damage happens. The damage is never that one brownie. No one ever told me, oh gosh, Amber, I've gained so much weight and I feel so out of control because I had one brownie yesterday. Right? The problem is not the one brownie. The problem is when we say, screw it, I'm out of control, and then we eat half the pan. That is the problem. Okay, in the chat, the problem for me is when I have one, I have to have more, more, more. So I'm curious, why do you think that is? Why do you think you have to have more, more, more? For most people, when they are eating these foods, they are in a scarcity mindset. What that means is you're telling yourself when you're eating it, it's never enough. I don't normally get this. I need to get it all in before I have to be good later. If you're telling yourself these thoughts, of course you're going to want more, more, more. It is not the brownie's fault that you want more. It is our thoughts, because there are plenty of people around the world who do just have one and move on, who can just have a little and feel satisfied. And that's not because they're eating different brownies than you. It's because they're having different thoughts about the brownies. And the good news about our thoughts is they can change. So with this, we want to go into an abundance mindset. An abundance mindset looks like, I can have this again later. There's always more available. Pleasure is available to me in many different forms, not just brownies. And reminding yourself why you're choosing to not have brownies all the time. It's not that you can't have brownies in the house or you never have brownies in the house. I don't always have brownies in the house, but it's because I just choose. I like other things too. I like other things besides brownies. I also like fruit, and I also like, what other sweets do I like? Yes, I like cookies. There's other things that chocolate. I like chocolate. And so I like to think, I don't want brownies in the house all the time, not because I'm not allowed to have them or they're bad for me, but because there's other things that I also enjoy that I'd like to have instead. So from the chat, once I taste it, it's binge time. So yes, noticing the reason your brain is going there, my guess probably is because you binged on this food in the past. So your brain is just letting you know, hey, you've done this before. Do you want to do it again? It's just offering you a suggestion. Based our lower brain especially is based on habits and trying to make our life easier. So if your lower brain is looking to what you've done the past 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years around these foods, it's just going to make a gentle suggestion, which is easiest for it to do. Hey, don't you want to do this again? This is what you always do. Once we start to recognize it, that's where we need to see we have a different choice, that this is our time to change, that we can be someone different. And it might be uncomfortable. I'm not going to tell you that the first time you do this, it's going to be rainbows and butterflies and super easy. But that's okay, because the more you do it, the easier it's going to get, so you can be the natural eater you want to be. Okay, so something that might come up around this is, what if you have lots left over? You make a whole tray of brownies, you live alone, and you might get this thought of, well, I have to eat them all before they go bad. I don't want to waste anything. So if this happens to you, and if you've started to use my processes and you get to the point where you're like, well, I have so much extra brownies, what do I do with them now? Here are some options. You could give some to your neighbors. We don't talk to our neighbors enough. Most of us are pretty isolated in our neighborhood. Knock on your neighbor's door. It'll be a good excuse and say, hey, made some brownies. I'd like to give some to you. You can bring some to work to set out. Set it out on a table, a break room at work. Dropping it off for friends and family, right? Calling a friend, hey, I have some extra brownies. Are you cool if I drop off 2 of them at your house? Right, and then you can do it that way. Put it in the freezer. Thank you. Good idea. Yes, you can freeze them. I would love to know how to do that better. I've tried to freeze cake once, but again, like I sometimes like to bake. I am not an expert baker or chef by any means, though, so I don't really know how to freeze them. Like I froze the cake okay, but I think there's a process where you're supposed to wrap it in Saran wrap. Anyways, yes, you can freeze it. So thinking about when you have extra of this food, when you make a whole batch of cookies, that can be an opportunity for connection and sharing the joy of what you just made. It doesn't have to be something scary that you have in your house. You can say, wow, how else can I share this? Now, let's be honest. After a few days of making a baked good, most of them start to become really dry and crumbly, like less moist. They're just not as good anymore. So it might not be worth it for you to even eat it. One of my favorite things that I love seeing with my clients in the Confident Eater program is when they start to tell me, I'm just really picky now. Like, I don't really want that grocery store cookie because it like looks kind of gross to me. Or the brownies have gotten kind of old and stale, so I just want to throw them away and just like make new ones because these ones aren't really up to my standards. And that will start to happen as you start to build this abundance mindset of there's always going to be more. You give yourself the best of the best. You don't give yourself the half-old cookies that are like crumbling at the seams, because it's just not worth it to you. It's not worth spending your hunger on. So if you do these tips, right, and you have all these extra foods and then they're becoming crumbly and dry, I want to give you permission right now to throw it out. It's okay. All of us will say, oh my gosh, I don't want to waste money. I spent, what did I spend? $2 making these brownies, and now I have to throw away 50 cents of the brownies. Would it be worth it to you to stop overeating for 50 cents of brownies, right? Like, that is what I want you to consider. The food waste problem of our world is not coming because people are throwing away their half-dry brownies. Food waste is a global issue that is on a much larger scale with big businesses. It is not coming from people listening to their hunger and fullness. I can promise you that. Okay, I think it's the FOMO. Yeah, right. I might miss out on this. I don't want to get rid of the pleasure. Again, that's going in the scarcity mindset. This is a mindset that was taught to you by diets, right? That we have to get it all in right now, that there's not going to be any more left. Maybe if you grew up with true food scarcity in your household as a child, that can be a factor at times. But whether you did or not, if you have been dieting, that's going to put you into that FOMO. So we really need to work on unlearning that diet culture and starting to show ourselves how these foods aren't going anywhere. We are all grown adults, meaning that you can go make brownies again anytime you want to. You can go to the store and buy more. And when we see that and we start to truly believe it, that's when we let go of this tightness of I need to get it all right now, because we know that we're going to get more food pleasure again. And also reminding yourself, I said this earlier, but that you have other pleasures in your life besides just food, right? So just because the experience of eating the brownie is over, that doesn't mean you're not getting any more pleasure. You can go get the pleasure of reading a book or going outside in the sunshine, feeling the fresh air on your face, taking a few deep breaths, doing some stretching in your body. There's so many other joys in life that we get to experience too besides food. So if this is something that you're working on of trying to eat foods in moderation, this is something that I cover in depth in my Confident Eater program. Now, I have a new group program that is starting this Thursday, so in like a day and a half, and I do have a few limited spots left. This is a program that is going to help you stop overeating and binge eating by rewiring your brain. It is a 6-month group and it is a super high level of support. So there's always less than 10 people on it. I cap it at 10 people because I want to make sure you get a really high level of support. And some really nice bonuses I have going on this round is you are going to get 2 private coaching calls with me, as well as access to the Confident Eater course, where you're going to get all the essential lessons and worksheets and everything you need to know based on all of my experience in training as a coach, learning how the unconscious brain works. So we really make sure you feel safe to let go of these habits, because right now, a lot of the reasons you get stuck is because you feel this habit and your brain's had it for so long that it doesn't feel safe to let it go. So I would love to invite you to book a free consultation call with me. I'll put the link in the chat. These calls are 45 minutes and are really just a great opportunity for us to get to know each other. I go over your goals. You're going to get a lot of insights and tips and clarity on how you can go from where you are now, struggling with overeating and binge eating, to how you can be this natural confident eater. And then, of course, on that call, I'll let you know the details of the group program a bit more. I also have private coaching if that's of interest to you. But like I said, the group is starting this Thursday, and then we're not reopening till the end of the year. So if you have any interest in it at all, make sure to get on my calendar as soon as possible. And I'm also going to put my email in the chat for anyone watching this back on replay. It's Amber Abila, Abila, coaching@gmail.com. If you don't see a time in my calendar, you can just send me an email. I know it's like pretty last minute and the spots have been filling up really quickly. So if you cannot find a time, just send me an email and I'll make sure that we can find you a time. All right, so with that, does anyone have any questions about the training today or anything that they'd like specific help on with their eating, whether it's related to today or just in general? You're welcome to put it in the chat or unmute. Well, I'm seeing if you guys have any other questions. Just a reminder, we have coffee chats every Tuesday, so you can come back next week. The difference between coffee chats and like my full program, coffee chats, I give a lot away for free and you're getting so much good information, but ultimately it's just 30 minutes of a little teeny tidbit of whatever I decide to talk about that week. In my program, you're getting the full structured step 1 through 6 of exactly how to stop binge eating in a very structured, methodical way. So it's not just random tips and tricks. Well, those can be helpful. Plus, you're also getting personalized support from me. So you can get unlimited coaching with me in our written private Facebook group. You also get coaching from me on the calls. Again, because the group is so small, we're able to have a lot of time together and really get all of your questions answered. So thanks for joining today, Jennifer. I'll let you go and have a great rest of your week. Bye.